and that's James Ham. He is firmly in Team Bagley. I believe that. Are you an honorary member of Team Bagley, James?
Yeah. No.
No.
No, I mean, for a long time, I was blocked from
Oh my.
all of their social media channels for a long time. I think I'm no longer blocked on Twitter from Marvin. But yeah,
Dad Marvin, not Marvin.
no, Marvin himself.
Oh,
No, there was yeah. No, I've been blocked. And
okay.
it's not like I'm out there spouting a bunch of crazy nonsense about Marvin, you know. It,
What do you think about he spoke to the media for it feels like for the first time in a very long time Saturday night, and it played very well, complimentary of Alvin Gentry, seemed to say all of the right things. What do you think about Marvin's increasing role here with the Kings over the last couple of
yeah,
games?
in most situations, Marvin does say the right things to the media. It's usually when he's away from the media that if he has said things that are negative towards the Kings, it's when he's away from the media. I mean, he went on a podcast and espoused that he would like to find somewhere else to play, like during the summer. But he's never actually spoken to standard media and said anything but the right things in most situations. And that's why I've told you guys many times, like as a person, I like Marvin. Like I think he's actually a really good kid. Um, that doesn't mean I like all the things that happen with him, but just as a person, he's never struck me as like a bad dude, and
Mhm.
I've covered bad dudes in Sacramento. He's not one of them. But that doesn't mean that the antics, the craziness that comes along with the people surrounding him isn't too much, because it is. It's always too much, and that's not something that we should have to put up with. It's something the Kings fans shouldn't have to put up with, but it's also as media, like he just creates more work for us by running into these ridiculous situations that don't make any sense.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way as you, Ham, when it comes to Marvin Bagley. I don't think he's, as an individual, has done anything to like make somebody not like him, the person. He seems like a well enough young man, respectful, not really not this mean guy or anything like that. But everything that swirls around him, I'm just kind of tired of it. I'm kind of over it, and it seems like to me he comes off as a bit of a front runner. When things are going his way and everything is going the way he or his team deems that it should be going, everything's good. He wants to step in front of the podium, he wants to laugh and joke or whatever. But the moment things don't go their way, the group and even Marvin to a certain degree start throwing these tantrums and doing all this. And I'm just not a fan of that. That's just not my style. That may work for some people, but yeah, I'm just not for that. That's not okay.
Yeah, I think like if we're being honest right now, this is not what he wants. Like he's still like in and out of the rotation. He's got to play most nights under Alvin Gentry, but I know at least one night where he didn't play at all and he sat in the tunnel on a bike. And then he got sick. So of the Alvin Gentry era, what has he been? He's played in 3 of the 7 games, I think. And so like he's saying the right things, but you could also look at and see where he talked about Alvin Gentry so glowingly and how he thinks he's using it, him the right way, and see if like some people could see that as a backhanded jab at Luke Walton.
Mhm.
But that's if we're looking for these things. And unfortunately for him, sometimes we look for these things because he's put himself in a situation where that's, how a lot of people react to him.
Mhm.
And so, look, if he's out on the court and he's doing what he's doing, and like he had his first double since May of last year in the game the other night, I thought he was effective. I wrote about this a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, about how I think he's starting to figure out what the game of basketball is. It's not just points and rebounds. It's what happens in between the points and rebounds that matter more than anything else. And I think we're starting to see him figure out the game, which makes sense because he's still, what is he, 22? Or maybe 23. He's almost 23, I think. So he's starting to figure out the game like a normal process, a normal player would. He might be a year or two behind as far as like how many years in the league it's taken him to figure out some of these things. But I throw a lot of that to the injuries and just him missing so much time. He's never had this natural progression of learning, staying healthy, building on the previous day, building on the previous season. It's just never worked out that way for him. There's always fits and starts. Even if you look at this season, the 2 games he was really rolling, and all of a sudden he got sick and he missed 2 games. Like there's always something, unfortunately, for him. And that's the biggest thing. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna play." He said, "I woke up that morning, I got out of bed, and I said, I am going to play." I called the trainers and told them, "I'm good to go no matter what tonight." And that's what you want to hear. You want to hear him want to play and want to get out on the court and help his team. And I think right now he is helping him.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening to D-Lo and Casey on ESPN 1320 KIFM, West Sacramento and Odyssey Station, and driven by Lashers, Elk Grove, Dodge. It's a 49ers Monday, brought to you by City Center Financial. Refinance today. Low 1.99% APR at 1-866-GO City 6. We're talking Kings basketball. Proper introduction here with our 1320 Kings insider, James Ham. You talked about the writing that you did regarding Marvin Bagley, James. Well, how about the writing you did this weekend in your Sunday musings with Buddy Hield? This was some really good stuff. I'm not the biggest Buddy Hield supporter, as at least as it pertains to this current roster, but you did a tremendous job of really diving into the numbers and showing, it's not just the eye test. Like the numbers show, this team is playing much better with Buddy in a more limited role.
Yeah, I think that's like when you look at what's happened with Buddy, we joke around about the live by the Buddy, die by the Buddy, right? Which is the title of the story.
It's not a joke, James. It's the mantra of the season.
It is. If you look at the numbers, it is startling. I don't know that I've ever seen the eye test and the numbers match up so perfectly. And that's a problem, right? Like when you see that he's hurting the team, and then you go and you look at the numbers, I think it's startling. It's absolutely startling. So on the season, in their wins, Buddy shooting 44.3% from the field, 41.5% from 3. And their losses, he's 9% less from the field. He shoots 35.2% from the field, and he shoots 33.1% from 3. He shoots more in the losses, even though he's not hitting anything. He shoots 76% from the free throw line in losses. Wow. And then I'll also say this too. We're looking at this weird season. This season is totally crazy. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it where, and I asked Alvin Gentry about it today at practice, where a team is 6-6 on the road and 4-8 at home. And they were 3-8 before they just picked up that win. On his home floor, Buddy Hield is a 36% shooter, and he's a 34% shooter from 3. On the road, he's a 41.4% field goal shooter and a 38.7 3-point shooter. And the numbers are even worse if you look at his offensive rating at home is 100 versus a 114 defensive rating. His offensive rating on the road is 114 versus a 116 defensive rating. So only a negative 2 defensive rating. He's so much better on the road than he is at home, and he's so much better when they're winning, and when they're losing, a lot of it can be placed directly on him. He's a negative 13 per game in their losses, and that's just stunning. I mean, that's like, I don't know how else to say it. It's the numbers. Like I used to have this boss years ago when I worked for Copeland Sports, and all he talked in like these little sayings. It's almost like he read quotes of the day every day from like John Wooden and stuff. Like the old failing to plan is planning to fail. And he would always say, figures don't lie, liars figure. And it's,
you worked for Michael Scott.
Yeah. So clearly, yes, maybe it was Michael Scott. Maybe that's who he was. But I think we can start trying to say, oh, well, it could because of this, it could because of that. Well, no, it's because he's missing shots and because he's taking bad shots and because he continues to take bad shots even when, we talk about stacking days. He's stacking bad shots in a lot of these games. 1 of 10 from the field in the first half, 0 of 6, 0 of 7, 1 of 7. Like, he shoots his team out of games, and he's too good of a shooter to do that. And I know it's not intentional, but at some point, you watch him like he knows that there's no chance to win games, and then he starts hunting, and then he's just looking for his numbers, and it's alarming. And so again, part of this is coaching, but I think part of it goes deeper, which it plays into what we've talked about with a lack of leadership within the team.
To your knowledge, James, was there any type of addressing his minutes, at least in the last couple of games, being pulled back? Was that something that was addressed in that team meeting or discussion that they had, film session that they had, or was it just simply we got to the game on Wednesday, we got to the game on Saturday, and he was just waiting for Alvin to call him in, and it didn't happen as much? How is, I guess my question is, there been any kind of formal notification that his minutes were going to be reduced?
No, there haven't. There to the media, no. Now to him, I would assume that there has been, because following the Lakers game, that's when the team had a long discussion behind closed doors, and it was not a players only meeting, but it was a players driven meeting. The next day, they flew to LA where they played the Clippers. They had another long film session, and in that film session, there was again a players driven conversation about what they were watching. And he's the only one that I've seen so far that's had a massive reduction in minutes coming out of that meeting. So I don't know if fingers were pointed or if they weren't. Those are things that they're gonna keep behind the scenes. But he does not seem to have the neon green light that he did before. Now, it could be because Terrence Davis has stepped up in both of those games and been absolutely tremendous. But I also think that if you look at just he shot the ball 6 or 7 times a game, they just aren't giving him the opportunities. And that looks intentional, whether it's team driven or whether it's coach driven. He's not shooting 15 times a game or 17 times a game, or what Luke Walton said when he shot 17 3-pointers at one game. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be fine with you unless he's hit 8 or 9 of them,
Mm-hmm.
because that means he's on a heater. If he's going to go 6 of 17, that's just burying your team. You can't, even those 6 3-pointers sounds like a good thing. That's not a good thing. Not when you're shooting 17 of them. That's just, you're talking about 33, 34% from the field. That's not going to work out.
And you mentioned Terrence Davis. I know the focus of this conversation is Buddy, but with Buddy's minutes dropping, Terrence Davis playing the way that he is right now, how does this change? Hopefully on Wednesday, and I guess there are multiple questions here within this remark, but I assume Harrison Barnes is coming back, or
yeah,
if not, he sure appears to be close to it. How does this dynamic change when Harrison returns?
Yeah, see, I think that's going to be the interesting thing. What happens when new ingredients are put back in play?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about major minute eaters. We're not talking about, between Harrison Barnes and Mo Harkless, we're talking about a minimum of 50 minutes a game. So it's got to change for somebody. Somebody's going to lose out. I think Chimezie Metu will have some of those minutes go away. And then we have to see what Alvin Gentry does in the battle between Chimezie and Marvin, who's going to play the bulk of the minutes as that backup 4. There is a possibility that neither of them are ready on Wednesday. They both came back to practice today, according to Gentry, when we were just at practice. They're both on the practice court when we got there. There's a conversation that we may get to speak to Harrison Barnes at Tuesday's practice. But I don't think anything is guaranteed. Mo has a sore left knee.
Okay.
Yeah. So he just had some swelling or something pop up in a knee. I remember he tweaked his knee around the same time that Harrison Barnes took the bad step with his foot.
Mm.
So like, look, these guys are coming back eventually, and it's either going to be Wednesday or it's going to be later this week, and somebody's going to lose major minutes. And I'm not sure who that is. We're going to have to wait and see, because again, this is Gentry. It's not Walton. So there's going to be some changes here. But like I'll also point out, like we keep talking about this team and leadership, right? And it doesn't, who's running the team matters. It does, but it doesn't matter as much as what's missing from this team. And so when we talk about leadership, I think everyone, first of all, I'm not quite sure the rationale behind putting it all on DeAaron Fox when there's guys like Harrison Barnes and Rashawn Holmes and Buddy Hield, who are all much older than DeAaron Fox, and should be able to step up and say something. But I think the problem, I kind of want to define why I think leadership plays into this discussion. This team, very specifically, at what point does a player self-regulate and go to another player and say, you do that again and I'm not passing to you ever again? And that we haven't reached that point with this team where they're not going in and regulating Buddy Hield themselves and saying, look, what you're doing, or maybe we just saw it. Maybe it just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it took 20 something games into the season and you've let somebody run amok and cost you games, and whether it's Buddy or it's anyone else, there has to be some point when players take ownership of that specific thing and say, pull somebody aside and say, look, man, you understand you're hurting us, right? Stop what you're doing, because that is not productive and that is leading to our losses. And that's something I wrote in my Sunday musings, is that I don't think Buddy's a bad player. I think Buddy is a good player. I think he does have a skill that makes him marketable for almost any other team. I just don't think the Kings have the people in place to regulate him, and they haven't. And he's been around at this point like 5 or 6 years. So you're used to him saving the day, but you can't remember when the last time it was that he did. But you know that it's happened because Buddy has won games for you single-handedly. And so it's almost like the Demarcus Cousins thing where, in his final season, we had a little bit of Stockholm syndrome as media. He had got in so much trouble in that final season, and we kept telling everyone, oh, he's been so much better this year. So much better with, I think, 15 or 16 technicals, 3 separate incidents with media members. Yeah, he was with Matt Barnes in New York when a fight broke out at a nightclub. He yelled profanity at a fan. So my point is, like, all of these things happened in his final season, and he was traded in February. And we all had thought, oh man, he's been so much better this year. And realistically, it was that sometimes you get jaded by what you're seeing. And I bring this up because I think the Buddy Hield situation kind of plays into the same thing. He's been around for 5 years. You know how many times he's got cooking and he saved the day, or he's brought you right back into a game. So you start to expect it, but you can't expect it anymore. He's not the same player that he was before. He's not having those moments where he delivers and gets you and saves a day. And if you keep waiting for those moments, by the time you turn around, you're going to be 30 and 52 and looking at, on the outside looking in again. And so I think there is a major issue with, like, guys on the back end being able to regulate one of their teammates, because that's part of sports. You have to be able to regulate a teammate, but also, I think that there's a situation here in Sacramento where they might not have that guy that can say something to somebody or feel really comfortable doing it. And then a lot of it is, I think a guy's been together so long that they've lost some perspective when it comes to self-regulation. And so I think Buddy Hield could go to another team and they could have somebody who looks at him in the eye and says, you do that again, dude, and I'm just going to beat you up in the locker room. and that's, but that we laugh.
That's the Demarcus Cousins stuff rubbing off on you right there. That's
well, but I mean, if you guys played sports, like, there's those moments, right, where you look at a teammate and you either put your arm around him and say it nicely, or you get in a fight with him.
Kenny looks at me like that all of the time. We're going to come back. I want to talk more about this. James is going to witness Drake Bars in person, live, as D'Lo and KC continue here on this 49ers Monday, brought to you by Gilmore Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Right now, Gilmore is offering Niner fans a $49 furnace safety inspection. Just mentioned this ad. You get more with Gilmore. You get Drake Bars. Again, next, here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. All right, we're clear.
Oh, man.
I got to remember where we were. Team, okay, leadership. Leadership within the team. And then DeAaron. I want to talk about DeAaron defensively also. DeAaron defensively.
Taking notes.
I just can't remember anything, James. So when I think of something, like I jot it down. And then Tyreese practice. Actually, Kenny, I'll bring up we never do this. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'll bring up practice, but like you've been talking a lot about Tyrese's imprint on the game. I just kind of want to put that in your head too.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of notes there.
Oh, good.
I just hit Gilmore. Yeah.
Okay,
perfect.
Whatchamacallit too.
Okay, that'll be our last one, and then I'll hit Gilmore on our way out, and that'll be our last one. So
we got time, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rich from somewhere. I was jumping on your guy Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. My fantasy football team is rolling with Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. Kenny loves that movie.
Yeah,
rolling with the homies.
Yeah, but he's killed us. Like I don't know that I've watched an NFL player just look so disengaged on so many plays, where just disenchanted. Like
it's too easy for him.
It's
too easy,
I guess. And the fact that they're winning, like I think he's lulled Kansas City fans into believing that there's something more. But I think it's 6 games this season he scored in fantasy 12 points or less.
Oh my.
Yeah, and I think 4 of those games it's like 8 or less. Like he's single-handedly destroyed my fantasy football season.
How long? You've said it on the air before. How long have you been playing fantasy again? Because this is amazing.
32 years.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I started when I was young.
Another perk to the Kings Beat happy hour. I know how old James is.
Yeah.
That was leaked after a couple old fashions.
Yeah, that may have been the reason. Yeah. Were you there at the opening when the very beginning? When I told the first story.
I was. Oh no, I caught the first story. Okay. I caught that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's funny.
That's a hell of a story too.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a story. You guys got to be subscribers at the Kings Beat, man. It's worth. Not only is it worth it for the writing and the insight into the Kings, but these happy hours, boy, James. You just got to let James get a couple. James will, excuse me, guys, talk amongst yourselves. He'll go make another drink.
Yeah.
When he sits down, it's about to
pop off.
It's about to go down.
Yeah. And yes, I know what Drake bars are. I've watched Kenny do this. I just haven't watched it live.
Because we're trying to get it for the early crowd and the late crowd. So after Kings wins, Drake bars coming twice, maybe twice.
Amazing.
That's
Jay Hardaway, you banked on Matt Ryan. That's why your fantasy team is no good. Like, come on, bro.
Let's see what's going on with my fantasy team. I haven't looked at it in about 2 weeks.
Oh, see, that's not okay.
Let's see here.
We have the rings. Me and my son.
500
wow. There you go. Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
We should have won last year, but that debacle, was it Buffalo quarterback went off. Yeah, Josh Allen went off and he scored like 6 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. And like when they were up by like 30 something, he just kept throwing touchdowns and came back and beat us by 3 points in the fantasy football Super Bowl.
He did a Tom Brady. Oh, okay.
Oh,
And it was 2. It was a wide receiver did something ridiculous on Sunday Night Football, and then like 4 touchdowns. And
Hang on
again,
one
when they
second, Ham. We're coming back. It's a 49ers Monday brought to you by City Center Financial. Refinance today below 1.99% APR at 1-866-GO-CITY-6. My partner's got his head. He's looking at his fantasy football team for the first time in 2 weeks. James wants to disown him because he doesn't like those types of fantasy football players that Kenny is. James Ham's got championship rings next to him. He's a 32-year fantasy football player. You were supposed to do the read. We got to do Drake bars, but you fell into looking at your fantasy team.
No, well, look. It is a 49ers Monday brought to you by.
I already got it. We good.
Get it in there. We finance today below 1.99% APR at GoCityCenter.com. I was just blown away because I'm losing like 129 to 29 this week.
Oh my God,
that's ugly. Good, James. How about a league that I created, a pick'em league that I haven't picked in about 4 weeks?
Yeah, that's not good.
But that's for bragging rights among the crew right here. I got to see who's leading that, like, because somebody's got to be killing it. But you promised. You promised an encore of Drake bars.
Oh yeah, man. You know the Kings win on Saturday, and I got
speculation that James is going to drop a guest verse, but we'll see.
The remix, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Kings win 104.99.
How convenient!
Oh yeah, not Carter.
No, that's the wrong button.
Yeah, there we go.
Wrong button.
104.99. Yeah. James, this was like 4 a.m., south side of Toronto, doing what I do. Look. Used to be the shy type, see the pretty girls barely say hi type. Afraid to look deep, glaze into their eyes type. Like tattoo on thigh, Mary J. Blige type. Look, Kings got the win, 4 out of 6, and they doing it again, making us believe things change. Tearing to the open 3 and nothing was the same. Marvin taking shots, Buddy sits and watch. Barnes coming back, keep shooting the ball, Fox. I'm still not sold, but that Sacramento splash still hitting lemonade. And McQueen ice cold, I don't know. Kings might win, they might fold, I don't know. Kings might win, they might fold, I don't know. Wow, I did it again. I can't believe it's even better the second time around.
The best part is your reaction to your own bars.
No, that was James. That was fire. Even the second time around, it was fire. Wow. Kings might fold. I don't know.
James is like, I don't know what to do now. So
I don't know. I'll tell you this. Here's 6 degrees of separation. I was in the locker room with Drake, right? So I was in. Yeah, he walked into the locker room after Demarcus Cousins had just destroyed George Karl.
That's right.
So we walked in the locker room and it was all quiet and awkward. And the locker room was all in these little groups. And like you walked in like, oh man, something happened in here. And then we're trying to get comfortable. Like, what's happening? Something weird's going on. Then the side door opens, and here comes Vlade Divac and Vivek Ranadive. And Vivek walks in and goes, hi, I wanted to bring my friend Drake in and say hi. And everyone in the room is just looking at Drake like, what are you doing here? And so Drake came in and said hello to everyone. Including us in the media, like, hey, what's up, guys? I've also been in Toronto while Drake was, of course, sitting courtside during the finals. But yes, and then you dropped Mary J. Blige in there. I was in New York at a conference with my wife. They invited us to, I think it was the Met for some big event. We went to the event. Mary J. Blige was the music. She got up, they had a stage and she sat there, like they just brought her in for the conference. and there was probably like 50 of us around the stage. She was like maybe 3 or 4 feet away. So
That's
you
my
dropped Mary
girl
J.
right
Blush.
there. That's my girl, Mary J.
Yeah, and I was also in the Cleveland Cavaliers locker room. See what I'm doing here? I'm going full Nancy Lieberman on
I
you
like
guys.
it. I like it.
I was in the Cavs locker room when they beat the Warriors in Golden State, and Jamie Foxx and Usher were both in there wearing like ski goggles on top of their head, so they didn't get the champagne in their eyes. But I was in the locker room with those two as well.
Jamie Foxx was another Vivek Ranadive courtside guy too.
Yeah,
He was here.
but so was Kelsey Grammer. I mean,
I
I was thinking down Periscope, like, wait, what?
Was it Rose ever that guy?
Rose was here. Yep. Rick Ross was here. Wasn't the Drake day? Wasn't that did George Karl try to suspend DeMarcus for that? Or
I don't know.
I confused? Is that the Paul Westfall incident? Who tried to suspend DeMarcus?
Yeah, no, Paul Westfall demanded that they trade DeMarcus.
Oh,
that was on like a Sunday. He wrote a letter. Paul did. That's another twisted and dark story. He wrote a letter, saying that we have to be better. We can't accept this as a franchise anymore. It was DeMarcus's second season. And that was, again, I think it was on a Sunday. He took the letter to Jeff Petrie. And told Paul he would have the Maloofs look it over before they published it. He then put it on King's letterhead and sent it out to the media. So we got this very strange. I mean, it was about standing up for principles and morals and stuff like that. And then 2 days later, they fired Paul after that situation. So they did not trade DeMarcus like Paul had requested, which probably would have saved the franchise a ton of heartache over the next handful of years. But yeah, that was the Paul Westfall situation. That was very serious. Now, George Karl, certainly, he walked in the door and started calling his friends around the league trying to trade DeMarcus. That was for sure. I mean, he did that like even before he took the job. He was also already talking to friends around the league saying, "Hey, if I get the job, what would you trade for DeMarcus?"
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's why you got the snake in the grass emoji. Yeah, that
was an all-timer. It's sad that's one of the most iconic moments in Sacramento Kings basketball history. Is that
certainly
tweet.
In my time it's the snake in the emoji like tweet from snake in the grass emoji tweet from DeMarcus. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Marcus.
And then
Andre,
it followed up, wasn't it? Didn't like 2 or 3 other, like Andre Iguodala had one on I don't know if quote tweet was a thing back then, but didn't he chime in on it that night? That was a classic night in history.
That's right up there with the DeAndre Jordan debacle. That's not Kings related. It's NBA Twitter related. But when DeAndre Jordan was going to Dallas and everybody started tweeting emojis about keeping him from going to Dallas and keeping him in LA, and the birth of the banana boat and all of that stuff.
I think they went to DeAndre's house and they locked him in the house and had a long conversation with him. He's a big man. If he wanted to get out of the house, he would have just thrown some dudes around. But yeah, there's a lot of these like weird incidents, right? Like even what's going on with Damian Lillard right now in Portland, like demanding that they make a trade, and he knows what that means. It means that, hey, sorry, CJ,
What did DeMarcus say to George Karl that night?
Oh, we don't know, but it was not nice, and it was a profanity-laced tirade that, like, I'm not sure what exactly he said, but it wasn't nice at all. And I think it, man, I'd have to go back in my notes of stuff that we heard, but it was like hit hard. It was about him not having it anymore and stuff like that. So it was a long time ago.
So it was accurate.
Yeah,
look, hey,
maybe
call it what it is. Like, there's George Karl, and then there was the George Karl that was here.
Oh yeah. The George Karl that was here was not the same George Karl. Like, I loved going to George Karl post games and pre games when he was with the Denver Nuggets, and then when we got him, that it just wasn't the same dude. You know, the health issues had really taken a toll on him. And it just, he someone told me once, he's someone that, like, when you get older, sometimes it's, if you don't accept that you aren't the same person, and you don't enjoy who you are now, and you don't, like, progress into a different age, then and you fight it, then it really does make you bitter and angry. And they were speaking directly about George, about how, like, he just refused to acknowledge that he wasn't the same person anymore, and it was really detrimental to himself and to his team.
You
So
just described almost every rapper ever. Like every single one of them to a T.
I remember listening to the George Karl podcast, the one he had about a year ago or 2 years ago, when it was all about the Kings. And I remember thinking, and James, maybe you could just help out, and then we'll get to the current Kings. But it felt like everything he said in there was truthful. It just seemed like Karl just rubbed people the wrong way. But like a lot of people were like, oh, he's throwing dirt on da-da-da-da-da. And it seemed like everything was like kind of spot on. He's just a guy that, for a lack of a better word, could be a pain to deal with sometimes.
Oh yeah, he wasn't fun to deal with. He said offensive things to almost every single one of the members of the media at different times. He specifically said something to Katie Christensen, like, during a media session when they were in, I think it was Memphis. I'm not gonna say it. He called me an effing a-hole, and waited till cameras were rolling with New York media in the house, because he didn't like something I wrote. He had just about almost every single one of us he had his own run-ins with, but they weren't really, like, even that one, we left the media session and he put his arm around me and said, "Oh, I hope you're all right." And I said, "Yeah, I've been called that by much better people than you, George." At that point, like,
Thanks.
there was nothing left of for us to cover with him. Like, yeah, he was on his way out and everyone knew it. And it was an unpleasant way that the whole thing played out. And the fact that he was even there was unpleasant for a lot of people. So just a bad situation. That's where the Kings have to avoid, like, Alvin Gentry, if nothing else, he's a really, really good guy. He's a good human being, and he's here for the right reasons, and he wants to better the franchise and keep the rails from, the team from coming off the rails completely. Whether he can do that or not is a whole nother question. We'll have to wait and see. But he certainly was a guy that, like, his intentions for being here feel right, and that's not always the case.
Dealing with KC along with 1320 Kings insider James Ham here on ESPN 1320. Let's shift. I love story time with James Ham, by the way, but we shift back here to present day Kings. I think there are a couple of more things worth talking about, particularly no Tyreese at practice today.
Yeah, Tyreese was he's under the weather. He's another non-COVID illness guy that we're seeing right now. Seems like a little bug is gone through the team somewhat. And someone asked me on Twitter, when did they play? They played on Saturday night, if Tyreese was under the weather, because they thought he looked that way. And I didn't answer, but he probably was. He's just a little under the weather. Alvin Gentry did not seem concerned at all about him and his availability for Wednesday.
Okay.
That's good news.
Yeah.
I have said for the last two games, James, and I wonder what you see. It feels like Tyreese has been the tone setter and the guy that kind of gets things going in the first quarter, and it continues throughout the games. But it seems to be a little more aggressive. He seems to be more so trying to put his imprint on this game, and it allows DeAaron Fox to ease his way in. Am I seeing that wrong? Are you seeing the same thing? Or because it just seems like I'm watching these last two games against the Clippers, and I can feel Tyrese's presence in these games from the start.
I kind of feel like we have, like, the Kings are starting to figure it out a little bit. And so, and I think the chemistry between he and DeAaron is starting to work a little bit more. I think some of that is Alvin is subbing out Tyreese and I think Rashawn Holmes earlier than normally, than specifically than Walton did. So you're getting them out of the game at like the 5 or the 6 minute mark, and then they're coming back in of like the 9 minute mark of the first, and DeAaron will sit. So I think it's what we're seeing is something that I swear I don't know why this was ever an issue, but even if you're going to start Tyreese and DeAaron together, one of them has to be on the court the entire game. I don't care. Like that to me, it just doesn't make any sense. You really only have two true playmakers on this team, and it's those two. And one of them has to be on the court at all times. Davion will be a better playmaker than he is right now 2 years from now, but he's just like catching up to the NBA speed and trying to understand your defensive assignments and then trying to figure out your offensive assignments. He's always going to be ahead on defense. It's just too much. And so I think what we're starting to see is maybe they're blending together better. But I also say, like, part of the reason why the last two games is some of the minutes that Buddy would be out on the court with other guys like Davion or Terrence, like that. The other three guard set that the Kings have gone to, that's just not existent right now because they're splitting up the time. And I think it gives Tyreese an opportunity to really run the show for segments of the game, which is what they should do. Like there should be at least 4 or 5 minute segment of each half where Tyrese Halliburton and Rashawn Holmes are just absolutely destroying the opposition on the pick and roll. Every game. I don't care. Like Rashawn Holmes should have, I mean, the dude shoots, 70 something percent from the field. You need the ball in his hands, finishing around the rim and doing his thing as much as possible. And the best way to do that is to have him and Tyrese in the 2-man game. So I think we're starting to see them get comfortable, if that's possible.
Yeah, I've kind of stopped short of saying something like that today, James, because I didn't want to frame it as, okay, here we go. I'm all in. This team's going to get so much better. Everything's good now. But I do like we talking about the eye test earlier. Visually, you see things that are different. Kenny talking about Tyrese Halliburton. Like I don't feel like that's been the case most of this season. Tyrese got 14 shots up. DeAaron got 22. Not super efficient, but he was aggressive. We've been begging for DeAaron to be aggressive all year, and we finally saw that in this game. We've seen Terrence be able to do what he has in the last two games. The Buddy reduction in minutes. The fact that this team won a second game against the Los Angeles Clippers in which they shot like crap. That to me, that all, and then we haven't even talked about DeAaron's, defense in the Clippers game. Like those all feel like positives to me. And again, I tried to stop short of saying figuring it out or, okay, let's go guys. It's just eye test wise, they did look different in these two games against Los Angeles.
Yeah. I'll, as far as like, when do we jump on board? Right. It certainly can't be two games against the same team, and one with Paul George, one without Paul George. I think you need, I'm going to say,
it's
like,
got to be a while.
It would be like 10 games before, like I told you guys last time we talked on Friday, that if I were the GM, I wanted to see another 10 games, right? Before I would confidently say that I think this team is on the right path. I got to see like 14-6 over a 20 game stretch. And even then, I've got to be able to see that there's confidence building and that I can see that it wasn't just a cupcake schedule and something that made me feel like there was some other outside force that made them win. So like they've got this long homestand coming up, and they haven't been winning at home at all, which is ridiculous. I mean, again, they were 3-8 before they picked up the win on Saturday and moved to 4-8 at home. That's just embarrassing. You have to win at home in the NBA. There's no way around it. But in the month of December, they've got like 11 out of 13 at home, and they only play on the road twice in Golden State, and they play the Lakers, so they don't leave the state of California. Like this is an opportunity for them to catch up and to get above 500 and start building and start making people start to believe in them. And also doing it on your home floor where people can see it and then want to go join in because they see it happening. They're like, hey, look, they're winning. Let's go check it out. So this is a moment where I think that can happen, but this team has had these opportunities even last year, the year before, where you look at ahead and one of their 9-game losing streaks, what like 6 of them were just like they were lay down games against like the other team wasn't there to win at all, and you lost all 6 of them. So every time we see a soft spot in the schedule, this team just
which is why Wednesday scares us all to death.
Well, of course, and it should. Yeah, I mean, it totally should. So,
and that's what I've been getting at with this group for the last 2 or 3 years. When there is an opportunity presented to them, it feels like they've yet to cash in on that opportunity. And I say all the time, I'm not surprised that they've looked good in the last 2 games because, James, you were there on Tuesday, and tell me how you felt. But I felt Tuesday was like almost rock bottom as far as the energy in the building and everybody kind of being done with the Kings in that building. They're like, I'm done with these guys. We suck again. And that is typically when these guys get it together. When everybody kind of turns their back, says, we're doing an NBA hour, guys. We're not following the Kings no more, right? We're done. They turn their back. Then all of a sudden the Kings start to win. And the second that people turn their eyes back to this Kings team, this group in the last 2 or 3 years, that's when they go back into the doldrums. So I don't know when I'm going to believe if we ever get to that point, because I've seen it a little too much. And I need to, like you said, a 14-6 in 20 games. But then I'm going to be looking at games 21 and 22, because that's usually when they fall back down. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they change everything that they've done in the last couple of years and they consistent and everything goes good. I just need to see it. That's all.
Yeah, they don't embrace success. Like it's almost like they feel more comfortable in failure. And that's really weird, because I don't know who feels that way. Like, no one wants to lose a game, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't like, people don't like playing board games with me because I don't like to lose at anything. And so I will beat you at board games, and people are like, man, why can't you just like relax and have fun? Well, I'm relaxed. I'm having fun. I'm just whooping your,
Are you good at dominoes, James?
I've played dominoes a little bit, but I'll learn it and I'll like beat you. That's what I do. It's like I get intense, and that's not how I always see like the players on this team. It's not that they're okay losing. It's just that when they are losing, they don't know how to stop losing, and they don't know how to, like, they just they wear it so hard, and they just don't have the ability to step outside of themselves, like have a different perspective and say, how do I come back tomorrow and not let this happen again? And then you have a lot of, oh, here we go again moments. And that's what I see from this team all the time. Like oh boy, here it comes. It's happening again. We're about to get killed. And you feel those moments too often with this team. And that's too bad, because that's when you're going to lose a lot, is when you slip into the here we go again. And so if they can avoid that, then I think that they've got a chance. I mean, I jokingly said to Monty McNair one day, he's like, here we are again in the middle of like what feels like another 9-game losing streak. The one win is Detroit, and I said, yeah, but you know what? If last season those 2 9-game losing streaks would have been 2 4-game losing streaks with a win in the middle, like the one was this year, those 2 games would have had you tied for the 10th spot in the play-in game. Yeah. So while losing 8 out of 9 doesn't feel like an improvement, it's better. It's better than 9 straight. And if you would have had that last year, then you would have had an opportunity.
Good point. It's 1320 Kings Insider James Ham with us. It is a 49ers Monday, brought to you by Gilmore Heating, Air, and Plumbing. Right now, Gilmore is offering 49er fans a $49 furnace safety inspection. Just mentioned this ad. You get more with Gilmore, and I want to mention this here real quick before we get back to the Kings specifically. DeAaron Fox. Elijah Mitchell is in the concussion protocol. Kyle Shanahan said he was cleared Sunday to go back in the game, but reported symptoms this morning. As Cardi B would say, how effing convenient is that?
Yeah, Cardi would say it.
How convenient is that? Wow. How convenient is that?
Emmanuel Mosley will be out several weeks because of that high ankle. They're calling it a high ankle. I don't know if it's a high ankle sprain, but Emmanuel Mosley is out for the next couple of weeks. Trenton Cannon, who suffered that scary injury at the very beginning of the game, he spent the night in a Seattle hospital, and he is returning to the Bay Area as we speak. That according to Kyle Shanahan as well. Jeff Wilson had a flare-up in his knee that normally lingers for a couple of days, so he'll probably be closer to a late week, potentially game time decision. So there's are your annual injury updates on the San Francisco 49ers.
Scary.
Hey,
man.
that Elijah Mitchell play, first of all, there's no way he should have been brought back in the game because
Absolutely
I mean,
not.
Kittles was standing right there, like waving for the medical staff to come
I was
over.
fully expecting like his ankle or leg or arm or something to be pointed in the wrong direction the way Kittle reacted.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they went back and reviewed that to see if he fumbled beforehand or not. Why exactly did they not assess a 15-yard flagrant like forearm to the head shot on that play? And why didn't they give that player a like strike one? Because that to me, like watching that was ridiculous. There's just no room in the league for that. Like, how are you going to do that? And then the penalties the Niners get called for, even the late PI that the Niners didn't get. How is that not a PI? Like, you know, the end zone's 10-yard deep, and that guy was in like at the 8-yard mark, and you can only touch people within the first 5 yards. Like, he's draped all over him. He's holding all over him. Like, where was the holding call? That should have been a first down at the 1-yard line, and with a fresh set of downs. Yeah. So sorry. I do watch the NFL religiously when there's no, especially on a day off. I mean, that was good. I watched 9 hours.
You know
straight.
what was funny? I don't ever remember you tweeting about the NFL. We've talked about the NFL all the time. We did a show together talking about. I don't think I've ever seen you tweet about the NFL like you were last night when Patrick Mahomes was destroying your fantasy team.
I was just so it's so hard to watch. Like, I agree. Like, there are a bunch of balls that his wide receivers have had probably 7 or 8 this season go right through their hands, flip off their head, and land into a defender's lap for an interception. So I can get being frustrated, but at the same time, he skips 2 or 3 balls to Kelsey every game, and they pan to Kelsey, and he's rolling his eyes like, come on, man. And then in that game, they tried to make excuses like, I don't know if that ball got hit or what happened. He finally had Tyreek Hill wide open with room to run 30 yards down the field, and he threw the ball 23 yards. And just like, hey, you know, there's your guy. You had him wide open, you know, cutting crossed on a deep post, and you could have had like a nice 70-yard touchdown. But no, you made a bad throw, and that's where, again, it's just he's too good to have the mistakes that he's been having. Where Jimmy Garoppolo getting the final ball knocked down, well, that's par for the course.
Yeah,
Like,
I didn't have any faith in Jimmy there.
That's what you get for having Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback. So, sorry. Sidebar. Back to Kings.
DeAaron, defensively, on particularly of Paul George late. I thought he played really well against Paul George late in the game, but in that entire game, I thought he played well defensively, which is a hill I was slaughtered on earlier in the season because I just refused to believe that DeAaron was a bad defender, when in fact this season seems to show that DeAaron has regressed as a defender and is in fact just that. What the hell did we see on Saturday? Was that just a player turning it on? Like, okay, y'all need me to do it right now? I can do it. Like, what was that? Why all of a sudden was he all defense third team?
Yeah, we asked him about it. We asked Ty about it, and I think I asked DeAaron specifically about defending. He just said, "Look, I know that we needed, we're going to go small on Paul George. We needed to go small, and that meant that my number was going to get called. And like he held Paul George to 5 of 21 from the field, and not all of it was on him, but a good portion of it was. He was exceptional from the opening minutes of the game. It wasn't just like a small segment of the game where he was defending Paul George. That's how they opened the game. And I thought, hey, look, that is exactly what we need to see from Fox. Now, Paul George doesn't really have like that next level post up game, and he's not a guy like like Paul Pierce, where you get into Paul Pierce and he knows exactly where the basket is and he shoots over the top of you, even though you're draped all over him. He's not that guy either. So I thought Fox did a great job, and we need to see more of that. We need to see him taking ownership on the defensive end and trying to take specific players out. I thought it was interesting that was, how many choices did Alvin Gentry have there? He really didn't have a lot of choices. There's even a moment where they called, I think they called a timeout, and Fox came over to the bench, and either he was really fired up or he was really angry at one of the coaches. And I'm not sure what it was, but he had some harsh words. But it could also be that he had just come up with a couple of defensive stops in a row. So,
Either way, I like it.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it too. He was able to get into him. He's long. He's super fast, and he's not just super fast. He's super quick, and so he can stay with guys. But I don't blame a lot of his defensive woes. Like against the 76ers, that was on Fox. No, is Indiana, right? Is that where
McConnell,
yeah, TJ McConnell just ate him alive.
Right.
That was an issue for sure. But I think that the team, like his bigs, leave him hanging out to dry quite often. Like they're not showing up on screens, and he's getting drilled. And I don't know if the communication is bad in those situations. I just know that Fox gets smeared by a center way too often in games and can't get around the screen, which no one would get around. Even Davion doesn't get around every screen. So yeah, it was good to see though, right? You want to see a game where all of a sudden, hey, there it was. He showed up.
Right.
For sure. Another thing that was good to see was TD. Terrence Davis was in the house, and he played, a really good game. And I know Damian had sound from him after the game. I
know what you're doing. Yeah, I know what you're doing. I thought we had left it, so I don't have the sound from Terrence Davis pulled up in this exact moment. So I'm stalling. There's no way I'm gonna be able to.
TD was balling, and I mean, you heard me earlier in the season, Jane, or in the summer. I was saying Terrence Davis is better than Buddy Hield. Like Damian and DeAaron's defense, I was getting slaughtered for the better part of the first 20 some odd games. But I just think that Terrence Davis has the ability. He doesn't always do it. He's got a lot of Buddy in him, but he has the ability to do more things out there on the court more consistently than a Buddy Hield. And I think that works a little better for this team.
I think he's a better playmaker. And I certainly, when he gets hot, like he makes adjustments, or, again, like I've always compared him to Bobby Jackson. He's got a lot of like the no, yes shots in him. Like, oh, don't do that. And then boom, it hits. But he's a guy, he plays more like a street ball guy a lot of the time. He plays with a different energy, a different force. And then when he goes to, the lane, he's looking to catch a body. So I like what Terrence brings to the team. I really do. And I told you guys early on, like Buddy was sucking the air out of the second unit. Like the second you get him away from Buddy, he's flourishing. And you need that to carry over. And I'm not sure how it's going to carry over. So when you start getting players back, he needs to coexist with Buddy, or one of them's got to go. I mean,
feels like Buddy's sucking the life out of the first unit too.
You said, I don't know how it's gonna go. Yeah,
sucking the life out of me.
I know how to fix it.
This may or may not be Terrence Davis.
Competition with myself is just like the work I already been put in. Now it's just about me maintaining. You know what I'm saying? I already got
Is that Terrence
You
Davis?
remember when he said
Yeah,
that?
that's Terrence.
Or is this Terrence Davis?
Oh man, honestly,
Yeah, that's Terrence.
it's been tough.
See, that is in fact not the same individual. We had a tremendous realization earlier in today's show that Terrence Davis sounds exactly like the rapper Future.
Even with competition with myself, it's just like the work already been put in. Now it's just about me maintaining.
That's
Future.
Future.
I already got everything is already set for me.
That is
Crazy.
Future.
Yep, I can hear it now.
Oh man, honestly, it's been tough.
That's funny.
As a
That's
shooter,
Terrence
I
Davis
tell
right
this to Buddy. We talk.
You know how
It's
long
incredible.
it would have taken me to figure that one out? Like neither one of them would be famous still. Like because I would never have heard both of them. And yeah, like I think it's funny. You do get that, right? You hear voices. There's a guy on Survivor that sounds just
James,
like
I've got to cut you off right there. This story is going to continue exclusively on twitch.tv/ESPN1320 and youtube.com/ESPN1320.